Hey everybody, and welcome back to the internet. Happy Mother's Day to all of the moms out there. Now there's something that I've been saying that I would do for a long time, and I think it's finally time that I introduce this into the videos. I've had a lot of questions, people asking me if I'll take submissions or requests for stories and stuff, and I always say, just leave them in the comments, I'll make a video about it eventually. But instead of making a specific video just for YouTube comment stories, I'm just gonna be pulling some of my favorite stories and putting them at the beginning of these story videos. So if you want your story to be on the video, just go ahead and leave them in the comments of pretty much any of my videos. I mean, I can see all my comments all in one place, but the stories do not have to be related to the video itself. They don't have to be related to the question of the day. They don't even have to be entitled stories or revenge stories. Just any interesting or funny thing that happened to you or somebody else you know. And if I like your story, maybe I'll include it in the video. But just know there's only a limited space for them, so I probably won't be able to share all of the stories that I get comments for. And since I have a few thousand comments, I wasn't able to look through all of them, but for this very first one, this story comes from Secret Truce, saying, "Here's a story about my little brother in reference to the Ask Reddit question. So when my brother was really little, we convinced him that we bought him from Babies R Us, and the catalogs we get from Babies R Us are selling babies, not clothes. We always threatened him that we'd return him if he was bad, and when he was bad, we'd tell him to get in the car so we could return him and give me a little sister. There was a Babies R Us in a strip mall near our place, so when we went to get pizza next door, he, at age 7, saw the Babies R Us store first and started sobbing and begging to not be returned, and that he'll be good and that he's sorry. We later found out that he's the one that broke the vase to my mother's impatiens flowers, not our cat like my mother thought. He's now 15, and we still don't let him down on the fact that we convinced him that's where he came from." I know it's mean, but sometimes it's just so funny to convince little kids of crazy things. Anyway, that's the comment story of the day. One more note, if you're posting comments of stories that you want me to share, I'm more likely to pull it if it's, longer than a sentence or two, but less than a full page or multiple paragraphs. So something around this length is pretty good. You could do a little bit shorter or a little longer than this, that'd be fine. But let's get started with the Reddit stories, starting from Petty Revenge, called Petty Revenge on Casino Karen. So this story is of a Casino Karen. Before we begin, a few things to know. 1. The house always wins. Duh. And Casino Karens are slightly different than regular Karens. They must win immediately upon sitting down at the slot machine, and get very angry when they do not. And if you are winning and they are not, Casino Karens are even more unhappy. So last night, late in the evening, at a nearby casino, I was meandering my way back to my hotel room after breaking even for the night. Yay. I stopped at a penny slots machine and I decided to throw a few bucks in and play the minimum of 25 cents per spin, just for kicks and giggles. Shortly after sitting down, Casino Karen plops down at the slot machine 2 over from me, which I know is generally not a great machine, never see anyone really win on it, and has not played much as a result, and immediately lights up a cigarette while boyfriend stands there to watch her. After a few spins, at $1.25 a spin, she immediately starts complaining, and boyfriend joins her saying, "These machines are rigged. This is awful. I see why the casino regulars play the minimum." Now, normally I'm happy to see others winning because it makes the vibe more fun, but Karens? Nah, I hope they lose. So, it just so happens that about the time Karen starts complaining, I get in a bonus. This pisses off Karen and her boyfriend, and I hear them make a snide comment about how coarse I am in the bonus and only playing 25 cents. Lady, you know I can hear you right. Karen then gets in a bonus on her machine too, and gets 40 free spins and only wins about $11, which is about what I got on my bonus playing 25 cents to her $1.25. You would have thought that they would have stopped, but the complaining ramped up about 10 more notches, and they still kept complaining about 40 free spins and barely $10. So karmic fates shine down, and my machine decides to bonus several more times in very quick succession. Cue even more complaints. I try to be nice and tell them that I played it earlier at $1.25 a spin and couldn't get a bonus to save my life. And isn't that how it goes when I get a bonus at minimum bet? Silence from Karen and boyfriend. Okay, that's how it's gonna go. I was already irritated at the snide remark. The casino Karen proceeds to continue her non-stop complaining. Normal people just get off a bad machine, and I could tell she was eyeing the machine up and would jump at the chance to get on it if I left. I've been gambling a long time. I know when someone wants my machine. Despite being tired, part 1 of Petty Revenge is I decide to keep playing just to annoy her, and managed to hit a $50 bonus, which you can imagine irritated her as it would have been $250 if I was playing $1.25 like her. About 3 Karen cigarettes later, she finally leaves, but only goes about 7 to 8 machines down. I can tell the boyfriend keeps looking my way to see if I have left. Part 2 of Petty Revenge is I pull out a ticket I haven't cashed in yet from another machine that has about $250 in slot credits on it, and I inserted it into my machine. This way, it looks like I won a really big bonus if they walk by to see how I'm doing, and how many credits are on my machine. Of course, about 10 to 15 minutes later, they stroll by, and I could tell they are super annoyed to see I've won over $350 in credits on the machine. Once it was clear they were gone for good, I cashed out and went to bed. Moral of the story, if you get upset at what is supposed to be a fun activity, you either have a gambling problem, or are a casino Karen, or Kevin, and I will happily do what I can to get under your skin and make you even more annoyed, because I feel like being a jerk. Man, I feel like a casino is just one great place to set off a Karen, because there's a lot of things that are just completely out of anyone's control. What would have been even better in that story is if he had stood up and walked away and let them sit down at the machine and then watch them lose all of their money again on that machine. Okay, let's move on to Entitled Parents, called Rude Entitled Parent in Cinema Gets Instant Karma. So this happened a while ago, but it made me happy, so I thought I'd share. Years ago, when The Dark Knight Rises had just been released, my boyfriend and I went to see the trilogy at the cinema. 3 films back to back. I'm a teacher, and when we walk into the cinema, in a row behind us were about 6 of my A-level students. Great trip to the cinema with my class. Anyway, the story's not about them, but they come into it later. We'd had a great afternoon, and we had watched Batman Begins and The Dark Knight with no problem. My boyfriend had gone to get free refills of popcorn and Coke, so I was just chilling, playing a game on my phone, waiting for the final film to begin. Enter entitled dad with 2 children in tow. He says, "You're in my seat." Of course, this instantly got my back up. He could have said excuse me or been slightly polite, like a normal human being. The joy of the situation was, of course, that I knew I was in the right and he was in the wrong even before I engaged in conversation with Mr. Entitled. I'd say, "No, I'm not." He says, "Yes, you are. This is my seat number. You're in our seats." I say, "No, I'm not." He says, Yes, you are. This is my seat." I say, "No, I'm not. Can I see your ticket, please, sir?" I find being saccharine sweet to Entitled's really annoys them. The entitled dad shoves his ticket into my face, with a self-satisfied grin of triumph on his face. I should mention at this point, the 6 formers just behind me had stopped eating popcorn and were avidly watching to see how the scenario would play out. I look at his tickets. I say, "Here's your problem, sir. Your seat is in screen 2. This is unfortunately screen 1. He snatches his tickets back and storms from the screen to hysterical laughter of 6 18-year-old lads as I shout after him, "No need to apologize, sir. Happy to help. We all make dumb mistakes." So anyway, I enjoyed that exchange, so I thought you guys might too. The thing is, if he'd just been polite, he wouldn't have humiliated himself or his poor kids. See, jumping to conclusions is where you really get yourself in trouble. Alright, here we go with badges with a hint of sexual harassment. So we don't wear uniforms at work, but we have lanyards with keys and a photo ID cards on them. Being asked, "Do you work here?" is a constant annoyance, and my coworker got so fed up with it he took a stand. He started with, "No, I just really like keys," or "No, I just love myself so much I wear a photo of myself on my chest." But then he got more creative. I once heard him say, "I'm legally obligated by court order to wear this badge at all times." Another time he said, "I'm an undercover cop. We think this place is a front or something." The complaint that finally got him canned makes for interesting reading. Being posed the question, he looks the woman dead in the eye and says, "Pretending to be a sales assistant is my kink. I'm deep in roleplay right now." He then grinned at her in a really creepy way, quote, and said, "Could you demand to speak to my manager? That'd be so hot." I'm a woman, and don't get me wrong, that was unacceptable, but when I read that, I couldn't stop laughing. And I'm not alone. When we gathered all the staff together to explain, they all did the face where you're trying to look horrified without smiling. Oh, come on, it's okay to laugh at inappropriate things. Man, if somebody really had a kink like that, they'd probably get off to my videos. Alright, next up we have my entitled mayor's daughter. So I'm not going to say where I'm from, because it's the mayor's freaking daughter. I'm not trying to get in trouble or screwed over by the cops for some reason. A couple of months ago, this little pizza shop was going to open. It opened a few days after it was supposed to, because there was some stuff going on, I guess. It opened, and they were trying to get things going smooth. I'm in high school, and after like a month or two, people actually started talking about it. Also, it was right next to a middle school. So they got everything up and running smoothly, with some pizza and wings I've wanted to try, but I couldn't because I never had time before this story. So let me paint the picture. On a cold rainy night, the pizza shop was open. The only bright light shining out of their windows, but it was a night, in a school zone. The shop was open, and the mayor's freaking daughter, a 30-something-year-old entitled floozy, got drunk and was driving back home, I assume. She was going a lot over 25 miles an hour. She was driving about down the road, and she might have tried to swerve out of the way from some squirrel or something. So she swerved into the still open pizza store going over 25 miles an hour while people are still inside the store. She injured 3 people and destroyed the store and its business after only being open for less than 4 months. When the cops came, she was taken around the corner to talk with the officer. Apparently there was no breathalyzer test. No friggin' arrest, maybe a fine, but nothing will ever appear on her criminal record. I'm livid at this wench. I swear to Yahweh, if the mayor tries for re-election and I can vote, I would vote for literally anyone else. Man, screw entitled people, screw that officer, screw the fact that nothing happened to her, but the store is going to be closing because of her. Not to sound like an entitled parent, but the literal least that she could do is pay for all the hospital bills, reimbursement for the non-consensual time off the work, average amount of money they would have lost for each day closed, and the cost of reconstruction jobs, and caterers for the job, as well as a minimum 744 hours of community service, if not rotting in a jail cell for 2 years. You know, believe it or not, I have never driven a car into a building before. But it sounds like fun though. Alright, now for the big story called Try to Ruin My Life? Say goodbye to your husband, your home, and your foot. This is the story of how I got revenge on my mother. Now, to give some backstory to this, I will say things with her weren't always bad. When I was a small child, she was the coolest mom in the world in my eyes. Looking back, she didn't make the smartest parental decisions doing cool things. But nonetheless, they were good times, I still remember fondly. As I got older, her manipulative ways and desperate need for everyone's attention at all times got unbearably worse. She also tried to make me into the same crappy person she was. She taught me how to make up elaborate lies and stories so my grandma wouldn't know where we went. She was a compulsive liar, so even though there was no reason for this, she did it anyway. She constantly told me that school taught useless crap and I just needed to pass and get by, and then would berate me for bad grades. She blew my friendship up by either manipulating my friends or their parents. Taught me the first thing to do when my grandma died was to take all our money and grab her lockbox. Also had money, and yes, meant before calling 911. And honestly, there's so many horrible things she told me was okay and did a lot of terrible stuff to me, but there's just too many to list them all. There was also a decent heap of mental and emotional abuse that seemed to increase with my age, but y'all aren't here for my sob story. The breaking point, I was in college. She went full-on helicopter parent during my first year, and she still managed to ruin with a few friendships because she's good at being a crappy person. Come my first summer vacation, it came time to get ready to go home. I wanted to go back to my grandma's house where I grew up. She showed up moving day and took all my things to her and her new husband's house. He's not my stepfather, I never liked him. She demanded I get a job, she didn't even have one, to pay for my food. But I also had to do all of the housework while she sat on her butt and watched TV and smoked weed. It took me less than a week to realize she wanted me there as her personal slave, but she didn't want to spend any more money than her husband made because of me being there. I texted a few friends out of desperation, and she took my phone in my sleep to read what I had said. She then began her work to ruin my life. She messaged all of my friends slinging some bullcrap about being a witness in court and said I told her a bunch of nasty crap about them I never said, and scared most of them off from ever talking to me. She called all of her family and told them that I was an alcoholic and I was going to fail college. My grades were decent. I had drank maybe 5 times ever at this point. My grandma came and got me after many tear-filled calls explaining what was going on. After I left, she refused to sign my FAFSA. There was absolutely no way I could afford school without financial aid, and tried to get me kicked out of my school. But the financial aid department at my school was awesome and helped me get around that, so I could continue there. After that, she'd call the house at my job several times a day and leave harassing messages. Luckily, she kept up her nice act when she called work asking for me. They were unbelievably understanding at my job. My grandma and I ended up going to court and taking out protective orders. She got hers with no contest, but my mother contested mine. At that point, my anxiety was so bad I became violently sick and missed my follow-up court date. After that, she tried to have me arrested. When the cops showed up to my house explaining to my grandma what she told them, we explained everything going on, and luckily they were also understanding. They got the crazy vibe from her on the phone. After that, I was done. I didn't just want her to rot in hell, I wanted the rest of her life to be hell. The revenge, for a while, I didn't really tell many people what was going on, and I'm the type of person that doesn't want to be a burden to their loved ones at any cost. But after going to therapy at my college, I got a lot of my crap worked out, and was able to come to terms with a lot of the crap that happened. So then I began my work. I told everyone she knew. Most of them she had gotten to first, but they changed alliances very quickly after my talks with them. I made sure to turn up the waterworks hard when I retold my story every time. Even threw in the occasional, I just don't understand why she hates me so much, and I only ever wanted my mom to love me. In reality, I knew she was just a compulsive liar and a narcissist, and was only flipping out because I wouldn't succumb to her will anymore. I told my family everything, including the mental and emotional abuse from my teens and up. Needless to say, they were horrified. I wound up getting a new number and blocking her emails so she couldn't harass me anymore, but she would call my grandma's house and leave messages there every once in a while, and try to slither her way back into my life. Nope, she even tried to kill herself with Tylenol to try to get sympathy. After I contacted everyone and told them what happened, no one gave a crap about her issues. Eventually, she and the stupid husband wound up losing their house due to money with her not working. They bought a truck and a crappy trailer to hitch it to and called it home. She even had the nerve to call us when a hurricane was coming up, and asked if they could seek shelter with us. We deleted the message. Now for the most satisfying part, a few weeks ago, after a quite long time from her last message, she calls. Apparently, as it turns out, her unmanaged diabetes caught up with her. She was in a hospital in North Carolina about to have a foot amputated. The stupid husband apparently decided he was done, so he ran away with his crackhead cousin. He took their truck and trailer and left her with nothing and nowhere to go. My grandma was literally her last possible saving grace. Everyone else turned her away, and she was going to be discharged in 3 days, with nowhere to go. She was begging my grandma to take her in, even having the gall to say, "How could you turn me away at a time like this?" Message deleted. Now I'm doing much better with a job I love, awesome roommates, the best friends I could ask for, and a boyfriend who is so incredibly loving and understanding of all my issues. I couldn't be happier, and she couldn't be more miserable. I'm a Hufflepuff at heart, but push me too hard and I can show you just how much of a Slytherin I can be. So TLDR, my mom spends years psychologically abusing me, tries to blow up my life, I make sure everyone hates her, and then she loses her husband, her home, and her foot. And I totally didn't realize today was Mother's Day. Well, happy Mother's Day, everybody. I mean, it's just kind of sad how horrible some families get, but sometimes you just have no other choice but to move on and move away from them. Okay, now for the question of the day. Now, normally I would only do question of the day that involved people telling stories, but I found this one pretty interesting, which is, what has been ruined because too many people are doing it? So someone says, Comic-Con. The whole convention scene is a nightmare now. I remember going to conventions 10 or 12 years ago and having the time of my life. You could shoot the crap with your favorite actors, get an autograph and a photo for a decent price, and see some amazing panels, all in one day. Now you have to wait in line for everything or be lucky enough to win a lottery. You can't buy any con merch because some a-hole waited in line overnight to buy the entire store to sell it on eBay, and photo ops have been monopolized by a company that jacked up the prices. Yeah, this one I can really feel. I mean, I've never been to a Comic-Con, mostly because I see it for everything this guy just described it as, but there is a convention I've been to lots of times called BlizzCon, which is, it's just a gaming convention for Blizzard games, and I've gone to it 8 times, but over the last few years it's just felt like it's gotten so much worse, and it's gotten so much more crowded, so much more expensive, and it just feels less like fun and much more corporate. So I can understand what these Comic-Con fans are talking about. Tourism to ultra-popular places, especially smaller cities. Dubrovnik especially comes to mind. The first time I went was pre-Game of Thrones, and I thought it was going to be pretty touristy, but sort of in a typical popular European destination way. I went again a few years later, after Game of Thrones became really popular, with my then boyfriend, because then we were in an area we hadn't been, and holy crap, it's the only place I've ever thought was absolutely ruined by the huge amount of tourists. And that was in autumn. I'd hate to see what it was like in the summer. See, whenever you hear hipsters say, I liked something before it was cool, there is some validity to that statement because sometimes things really can get ruined when they get too popular. So back when Etsy was in its heyday, it was really awesome finding unique artists doing unique things all over the world. I loved that I could find things for any niche interests that I could dream of. I would eat up featured artist videos and inspirations, and I felt like I had a real chance at selling the crafts I loved making for years. Nowadays, it's a lot of Chinese resellers and people selling things they made, and you can tell they were just 2 things they bought and glued together. It was kind of fun at first back when Regretsy was a thing, but now I feel like I just have to be super meticulous when I'm shopping on there to make sure that what I'm looking at is indeed either a vintage or a handmade item, and then it's not something from Alibaba or Wish with a 500% markup. Not to mention trying to stand out amongst all the crap if you're trying to sell things. Yeah, I feel like online marketing has become way too much of a trend, and so now everyone is spamming all sorts of things like Shopify and Etsy, YouTube, Instagram. Like, it's just full of people trying to milk out any bits of money that they can make off of it. Ask Reddit comment compilation YouTube channels. Wait, but no, in all honesty, I know what they're talking about. I'm sure you guys have noticed, there's all these channels, just like Ask Reddit channels, and they are all exactly the same. I swear I've seen like 50 different channels. I mean, they all use the same text-to-speech generator, they all use the same editing, the same thumbnails, the same titles and everything. Like, is there just some instructional video going around that tons of people are watching just to make some money on YouTube? I feel like this is kind of a trend that's gonna die out eventually. I mean, honestly, I saw that the storytelling trend was really picking up, and that's when I jumped on it because I just wanted to get my foot in the door for like a good YouTube channel. I understand that these storytelling videos are probably not going to keep me afloat forever, but I hope to continue to evolve this channel and make it into something quality, not just a quick cash grab. Someone says, driving. Living in California, the difference even in the last 5 to 7 years is insane. Yeah, traffic is probably the #1 best excuse for not having tons of people around, but I mean, you gotta deal with overpopulation. I mean, I would say that the biggest issue is not that we have too many people in general, but just we have too many people concentrated into specific areas. Like, there's still plenty of places around the country, or even around the world, that are very unpopulated, but everyone's just flocking to the cities, and the cities keep expanding and turning small towns into part of the cities. Flipping houses. I've never been interested in doing it myself, but when it was just a few people who actually knew how to improve a fixer-upper and resell it after increasing its value were doing it, it was a legitimate service. Now it's just artificially inflating house prices when investors buy up every open property in an area, put in trendy garbage fixtures and cheap paint, and expect unreasonable prices so normal people can't afford homes. It's ruining the housing market in a lot of places. Yeah, I definitely have noticed this going around lately. I think the problem is that so many people are getting attracted to passive income, and there's only so much passive income that can go around, and I feel like there's just so much competition for it now. House flipping, and like we said with all of the other internet marketing stuff, it's just everyone's looking for an alternative job. But then you get into this next one, which is getting a college degree. So, I guess that explains it. There's too many people getting degrees, making degrees worthless, which means there's just more and more competition for everything across the board. But I mean, our economy seems to be doing pretty well right now, so I can't complain. Well, that does it for all of the stories and responses. Yesterday I noticed people were calling me out because I said that one of the stories was hard to read, and let me add to that. So you guys don't actually hear it, but it actually takes me quite a while to record these. Like, some of these stories are like very weirdly formatted, or they have like bad punctuation or bad grammar or bad spelling or just missing letters. And honestly, like, if I'm trying to get a good recording of the whole story, it can be really difficult because I have to keep like pausing and rereading a sentence, or like trying to figure out how I'm supposed to read a sentence or whatever. And when I keep running into unfamiliar words or terms, then it makes it even more complicated. So I've been recording now for about 43 minutes. But after cutting all of it down, I'm going to guess this video is going to end up being, I mean, it's kind of a long one, maybe 20 to 22 minutes, somewhere around there. That's my guess, but who knows, maybe I'll be way off. Anyways, that's all for today, so thanks for watching.